So if you've been paying attention to social media at the moment, you've probably noticed that your feed is full of people posting long, grueling, exhausting workouts. And we think this is amazing. We think it's a great thing that people are exercising, even with all the limitations and obstacles that we're faced with by COVID-19. However, we've noticed some common themes. People are exercising for a long time. They're doing a lot of reps. They're doing the same sort of movements over and over again. And while it's great that people are exercising, we see some problems with this. We see some problems with the amount of variety, the variety of movements, the variety of reps, the variety of time length of the session itself. So why is this a problem and what do we need to do about it? Now, firstly, of course, we have to emphasize that any exercise is a great thing. So don't stop doing what you're doing. But there are some things that we can do just to tweak the level of sameness that you may be getting in your exercise program. And this is important for two specific reasons. The first, some of the things that you may now be neglecting with these long, grueling workouts are going to mean that you're not getting some of the health and the fitness, the aesthetic and the performance benefits that you could be getting out of your exercise. And secondly, did you know there are actually some negative effects that you may get from this chronic, long-term, long, grueling exercise? So let's talk about some of the things that you may actually be missing out on by doing this long exercise all the time. And the big thing that I want to discuss is the length of session that you are doing. Now, to understand this, you have to understand that there are different energy systems or different sources of fuel in your body which we use for exercise lasting 2 or 3 seconds, right through to exercise lasting an hour or longer. And these different types of energy, these different fuel sources, these different ways that we can fuel the exercise at different lengths, each of them has a different benefit. So there is a benefit that comes from you doing a very heavy lift, for example, that may last 1 or 2 seconds. And yes, there are benefits that come from these long, more grueling sessions too. But if you're only doing those longer sessions, it means you're only getting the benefit from those longer sessions. And you're missing out on all of the potential health benefits, all of the aesthetic benefits, all of the performance benefits that you would be getting if you were doing occasionally very, very short, heavy and high intense, maybe some mid-range stuff, 2 or 3 minutes, workouts lasting 10 to 15 minutes in length. You want to run that whole range. You want to run that whole continuum of exercise sessions that go for different lengths of time. Each of those different lengths of time is going to give you a different benefit. And if you're going to be neglecting any of these ranges, any of these time domains, you'll be missing out on some of these benefits. Now, if you're thinking that doing these long, grueling exercise sessions is going to be a great way for you to change your body composition, you're going to come out of COVID-19 ripped, might not actually be the case. The reason behind that is that the exercise intensity is closely related to something called EPOC. And EPOC stands for excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And this is basically where after you finish exercising, your body's resting metabolic rate continues at a higher rate for a longer period of time. So this basically means that if you're doing shorter, more intense exercise, you'll actually continue to get the benefits of that exercise for longer after that session actually finishes. And a great way to achieve this intensity is through interval training. And our recommendations would be like this. If you're doing intervals where you're working at a high rate and then resting, and that work time is less than 30 seconds, we would recommend that you rest for 4 times as long as you are working. So if you're working for 30 seconds at a high rate, you'd then be resting for 2 minutes. If the amount of time that you're working for is between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, we'd recommend that you rest twice as long as the work interval itself. So if you're doing 2 minutes worth of work, then maybe you rest for 4 minutes after that. Finally, if you're doing 2 minutes plus, we recommend a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. 5 minutes work, 5 minutes rest. And of course, you should also be doing some form of resistance training, which is where you're lifting heavy weights. Now, if you don't have access to this sort of equipment at the moment, it doesn't matter. We have put together a guide on the Range of Motion website that talks about the 7 ways that you can improve your strength, you can improve your muscle mass, even with limited equipment. So make sure you check that out. So aside from all of the health benefits that you may be missing by only doing certain time domains with your exercise, there are also several potential negative effects that you may be getting from doing this long, high intensity, chronic physical activity. And a lot of these negative effects are related to the amount of cortisol in your body. And when you do this long, high intensity exercise, your body starts to produce more of this cortisol. And this can do a number of things. Firstly, it can start to break down the amount of muscle that you have in your body and make it harder to lay down any more muscle. It can start to reduce the amount of testosterone in males, which can start to impact your sex drive and also your fertility. And this sex drive effect can also happen in females. Increasing levels of cortisol can also impact your immune system. And of course, during a pandemic, probably not the best time to be dropping your immune system. Increased cortisol levels can also impact the amount of some thyroid hormones in your body and also can change the insulin levels in your body. These two things can make it much harder for you to lose body fat, and in particular, in people who are chronically overtrained, we can see an increase in abdominal fat. So that hard to shake area of fat around the stomach, that can be increased by too much long-term, high-intensity chronic exercise. And from a mental perspective, from a psychological perspective, these increased levels in cortisol can impact your mood, leading to mood swings. It can lead to changes in anxiety and happiness, and even long-term can lead to depression. And aside from all the negative effects of cortisol, you can actually get an increase in free radicals in your body, causing an oxidation which can lead to chronic inflammation and stress through your body. Things that we want to avoid if we are looking to maximize our health with our exercise program. So here are our 6 takeaways in terms of what you should be doing to maximize your health in terms of the training you're doing during the COVID-19 shutdown. The first thing that you should be doing is ensuring that you're following a program with an end goal in mind, a program that's individualized for you. The last thing you want to be doing is just cherry picking sessions and workouts that you see someone post on Instagram. The second thing you should be doing is varying the length of your workouts. Sometimes you should go short and intense. Sometimes, yes, you should go longer. Sometimes you should be there in the middle, but make sure there's a good range across all of these different time domains. Thirdly, do some interval training. High intensity exercise interspersed with periods of rest. Our fourth tip is to lift something heavy, some form of resistance training. Of course, if you're limited on equipment, you can check out that resource on the Range of Motion website. Our fifth tip is to put in as much variety as possible, not just in the length of the workout itself, but the types of exercise you're doing, how many repetitions you're doing, the speed, the weight. If you have this variety, it will be great for your health, it'll be great for your body, and it'll be great for your mind too. And our final tip, and most important of all, something is better than nothing. So even if you're not ticking the boxes in terms of what you should be doing for an individualized and balanced exercise program, if you're doing something, you're moving in the right direction. We'd rather you do these long, grueling, high intensity sessions than doing nothing at all. So keep doing what you're doing. It's about optimizing and moving as far up this continuum as we can. Guys, I hope this has given you some tips on how you can maximize the effectiveness of your exercise program at home, and maybe made you consider moving away from some of these long, grueling, high intensity sessions.